Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back. And if you're listening in real time, happy Monday. We're still in the book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And next week, we'll jump into the 7 principles. So there's still time to order the book from our website, which is marriagepuzzle.com. You can find them at marriagepuzzle.com/books. But one of the chapters in the book leading up to the 7 principles is titled How I Predict Divorce. And John Gottman talks about what he calls the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, and so these are just different things that can creep into your marriage. And as you start noticing them, it makes it, harder and harder to start turning things around. And so I'm going to go ahead and just list all 4, and we're going to start breaking them down. The first one is criticism. Horseman 1 is criticism. Horseman 2 is contempt. Horseman 3 is defensiveness. And Horseman 4 is stonewalling. So let's start breaking those down.
So criticism can get confused with a complaint. I think you will always have a complaint in life, especially when you get married and you move in together, and there's lots of things that you could maybe complain about, and all that. We don't encourage you to complain about your spouse. I just want to be clear, there is a difference between complaining and a criticism. So a complaint is okay if it doesn't get to a criticism, because you can express your feelings to your spouse and work towards a resolution. And so a complaint, the difference there is there's 3 parts to it. Even Gottman says is like, number 1 on a complaint is, here's how I feel. And 2 is, it's about a very specific situation. And then 3 is, in that same sentence, you can express what you need or want or prefer. So with Thomas and I in our marriage coaching, we take couples through what's called a wish exercise. And we have them state, like, I wish for more blank because it would make me feel blank. And that's kind of a way of taking a complaint, something that you want more of in your marriage. You want your spouse to do more of, or stop doing something of. And instead of just telling them that, like, you do this, it starts with I wish for, and we let them fill in that blank. And then we also have them say, because it would make me feel, and express that. And that's kind of like a proper way to share a complaint.
Yeah, it takes something that you want to say in a negative way, puts a positive spin on it, points it back at you with that I wish, like you said, that I statement, so that it immediately brings your spouse's walls down. If you're trying to get them to change something for you or do something different or help you with more of something, it's going to bring their walls down because you're not coming in at them with a you statement in that complaint.
So a horseman is like something that can sneak up on you. And so the horseman number 1 is criticism. And so why that's different than a complaint is a criticism is global, and it expresses negative feelings or opinions about your spouse's character or personality. So it's taking like one thing that they do and quoting their entire character. So that's often where you hear those like, you always do this, or you never do that. And it's really just, maybe it's just that one situation where you could craft that complaint around, but you've taken it too far now and turn it into a criticism.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest pieces of advice we ever got when we first got married, was just take those 2 phrases, you always, you never, out of your vocabulary in your marriage. And I think that really helped us to develop a foundation around this. I mean, before we even knew the stuff from this book, those 2 phrases coming out of our marriage or being banned, like, obviously they'll come up from time to time, and we call each other out on that.
Yeah.
And so that really helped us to just pull back from the criticisms and, nail the complaints. And so, a couple of examples on this to give you an example to differentiate a complaint from a criticism. A
You do the
complaint,
complaint, I'll do the criticism.
cool, let's do that. So, uh, if I was complaining, my complaint would be, there's no gas in the car. I'm upset that you didn't fill it up like you said you would. Could you please deal with that tomorrow?
Versus a criticism where you've gone too far, I would take that example and say something like, why can't you ever remember anything? I told you 1,000 times to fill up the tank and you didn't. You always are so careless.
Wow, you were really good at that one.
I was ready.
um, in all fairness, I'm the one who often forgets a ton of stuff. Anyway, so
No.
that actually like was a little bit true on my end, but
But I don't
she
say
doesn't
that
come
stuff.
out like she doesn't come at me like that with that. So yeah, that's like kind of the difference between the complaint and the criticism. Although, like we said in our coaching, we try and spin that complaint into a positive way. And so, just kind of off the cuff here, that would be more like, I wish you would follow through with what you said you were going to do more, because it would make me feel like you cared for me.
Mm.
And so in the example I'm giving you is, you said you would fill up the gas and you didn't. And that, makes me feel like you just don't put me as a priority. And so just kind of flipping it around and saying it as an I statement first totally changes everything. And that's what we try to work on in our coaching. So moving on to the second horseman is contempt. And contempt is a sense of superiority over your spouse, and often comes out in just kind of blatant disrespect. And some of the symptoms of that you can see as like sneering at your spouse, body language or facial expressions when maybe they are trying to express that complaint to you, or even that criticism. You're kind of getting a little farther down the road when you get to contempt. And so having that sneering, or just that, again, demeaning your spouse, oftentimes contempt is fueled by long simmering negative thoughts about your partner, which happens if your differences aren't resolved. So, if we go back to that complaint about no gas in the car, and that that doesn't get resolved, and you bring up the complaint, and then your spouse just totally disregards it tomorrow, then you've got the same issue. Or you don't even bring it up, and you're still you just simmer on the fact that they didn't put gas in the car, and you're just mad at them now. Then it really turns into contempt, and that's when disrespect and the demeaning them can start to pop up.
Yeah, and so to be clear, like, there are four things we're talking about, but they kind of lead to each other. Like you're saying, it starts with that criticism that then turns into contempt. That then the third horseman is that can creep up is defensiveness, and this just escalates the conflict. Nobody wins when you're defensive, because when your spouse is attacking you with that negativity, it may seem, like a reasonable thing to do to defend yourself if you really feel like you're not in the wrong. And sometimes you can even be like thinking you're being humble with that, like, no, I didn't do that, or like, no, and you're trying to like chime in there, but defensiveness is really a way of passing the blame back to your partner, or the person that's attacking you with that negativity. So that's why this is a warning, because there's no winning for either side once one spouse gets defensive.
Yeah, and I mean, if we keep using this gas example, and you said, why can't you remember anything to me? And I said, well, I just have a lot going on. So, why is that my problem? And it just, now I'm putting it back on
Now
you.
it's my
Like,
problem.
you were upset because in the example, I would have said, I'm going to fill up the gas, and then I didn't.
Mhm.
And then you criticize me for that by saying I can never remember anything. And so then now I attack back. I defend myself by saying, well, like, this is everything I've going on. Like, of course I can't remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just putting it back on
Or
you.
like, why don't you do it? Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like this is just gonna
You
escalate
know how
and
to drive too,
escalate.
right? And there's the demeaning that comes
Mm-hmm.
out. You also could do it and just take it off of my plate for me and just be helpful for once. And so it really can just go back and forth and just get super nasty. And all we're talking about in this example is just filling up gas in the car.
Yeah.
And so that's where these horsemen come into play, is it can take something so little and just magnify it so big
Mm-hmm.
that it's really just hard to overcome. And so, getting to all of these, if these all start to creep into your marriage, then what can often come out of this is the fourth horseman, which is stonewalling. And basically, this is where one person's just kind of over it, and they just tune out. And so when this attacking starts to happen, they are just going to turn away from their spouse. And if you're the one stonewalling, you may feel like you're avoiding a fight, but you're also avoiding your marriage. And so, to kind of separate this, during a typical conversation, the listener would give cues that they're paying attention to the speaker by having eye contact or nodding their head or giving verbal cues like, yeah, okay, I understand, things like that. Um, but stonewallers just don't do this. They tend to look away or look down without responding with any verbal cues, and their body language is kind of off, like as if they're trying to tune you out.
And this is where I kind of feel sad for marriages, because you're saying, the gas example, it can be from something so small or a bunch of little things that then get to stonewalling, and then people kind of get used to that or comfortable. And so maybe you've heard us before on previous episodes where we talk about just like being roommates. So, maybe you're not thinking that you're going to be divorced, but if you're so used to stonewalling your spouse, then are you even like good roommates?
Right.
Like you're just going through life with this person and not enjoying it. And that's what I'm like, whoa, red flags, red flags. And so we wanted to explain these four things, but if you're feeling any of that, this is why we are marriage coaches, because we want to help before it gets to divorce. And you're trying to be in counseling or paying lawyers, we can just help the conversation again for you too, and
Right.
start to turn things around.
Yeah, and I this what I'm about to say isn't actually from the book, but this is just kind of my opinion and what I would imagine would happen if one person gets to the point where they're starting to stonewall, then the other person has two options left, right? They can either just continue attacking, and they'll always just be always, I know I shouldn't say that, but they'll always just be attacking, just fighting for, like, hey, I want to break through that wall and get to you, like chasing you emotionally and physically. And that's one way that it can go. And so if attacking is going to lead to stonewalling, the stonewalling is just going to get worse. Or you both just start stonewalling each other, and then there's no communication happening whatsoever. It's like, if you're going to stonewall me, I'll stonewall you, and then you really are roommates,
Mm-hmm.
or neighbors even, like it gets worse. You're putting even more space in between you. And so, like I said, it doesn't specify that's what happens in the book, but I have to imagine in a relationship like that, it's probably going to get to one of those points if you
Mm-hmm.
don't start working on turning it around. And so, if you find yourself in any of these four areas, then jump on a call with us. We can do that this week.
Yeah.
Whatever week you're listening to we can do that this week. Just check out our website, marriagepuzzle.com, and find a time and book a free discovery call with us, and let's just talk. If you're feeling any of these areas, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, of course, our heart is just to help and encourage, and just be a resource to bring that communication back and help you navigate this, so that you don't step into, even if it's you're at Horseman 1 or Horseman 2, or you're like, oh my goodness, I'm already at the Four Horsemen in my marriage, wherever you're at. If you're not already following us on social media, you can find us at Marriage Puzzle on Facebook and Instagram. And then, like Thomas said, we do free discovery calls, so go book that at marriagepuzzle.com because we'd love to speak with you. And we always look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Have a great week.